This is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Hey, what's up, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. I'm your host, Alex Golden, and joining me is Michael J. Facci. And Facci is very happy because his former favorite team, the Washington Wizards, just agreed to a 3-year deal via sign-and trade with the Dallas Mavericks, and they're acquiring Khris Middleton. What in the world is happening, Facci?
I knew you were going to be leading with that because we were talking about it right before we were about to start. The news just broke from Shams. We talked about it. He's rushing these tweets. There's not enough info in there. It was kind of a little bit confusing when he said, a 3-year, $17.6 million deal with the Wizards via sign and trade. Doesn't report what would be coming back in the deal, but also 3 years from Middleton. We were interested if it was going to be like a minimum contract on like a 1 to 2 year type of deal. What's Middleton going to look like in year 3?
Yeah, we don't know what the details of the contract are either, so it could be very similar to what Quentin Post just signed for, right, where he got 2 years non-guaranteed, or I think it was team options on the next 2 years, whatever, something along those lines. So I do believe that there's probably some kind of, we're not giving these 3 years fully guaranteed, but it's like, why is he going to Washington? Out of all the teams that apparently had interest, maybe there wasn't as much interest in Middleton as people thought in the open market. Like,
No.
Everybody was screaming, Miami, Miami, Miami. Well, the Pacers were linked to Middleton for a long time by fans and by people kind of speculating, like, would Middleton make sense on the minimum contract? For him to get basically around $6 million per year, I mean, it's a little bit under 6, probably closer to 5.4, but still, that's pretty wild to me. I can't believe he got that, and I really don't understand what the Wizards are doing.
That's the near taxpayer mid-level, so very interesting stuff. I guess maybe, you and I had talked about it. I was saying I don't think it would be all about the money because he's made about $350 million in his career, but I guess maybe the man was not willing to take a minimum contract. I think if that was the case, then maybe he probably would have had more suitors because I do think that he would have fit a bunch of other teams, but is this really where he wants to spend kind of the end of his career? I think you and I were also talking offline, like, what do the Wizards think of themselves right now? Because they're trying to, it feels like they're really trying to make a push to win. Obviously, you bring in AJ DeBanza, that's great. The Trae Young contract, incredibly head-scratching move. Anthony Davis, I'm confident, does not want to play for them. It seems like that's been a very weird situation. They're saying they're not going to trade him. They just make a trade for DeAndre Ayton. They've even starting to add to their coaching staff. They're bringing Patrick Ewing and someone else used to be in the front office. It's like a consultant. So, like, it really feels like they're making a serious push to go from, like, worst to try to be in the mix of things, even though this roster still is just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, Trae Young, did you see where he's got a 15% trade kicker if he gets traded? It's like, I think Scotto reported that. It's like, Anthony Davis, like you said, doesn't want to be there. Ayton, does he ever want to play basketball or just get paid? I get wanting to have adults in the room. I definitely understand that. And that's bringing Middleton back clearly is not the worst thing because they liked Middleton a lot, but they had to trade Middleton to get Anthony Davis. Like, if you can get Anthony Davis for Middleton and whatever else they gave up, like that's a no-brainer of a deal if you're the Wizards, and then to be able to bring him back in free agency, it's a little bit interesting. I mean, I still don't think they'll make the playoffs. There's too many teams that are trying to contend for the playoffs. Like, they'll probably get in that 12 to 13 range. Maybe they won't be like Brooklyn and Milwaukee. Maybe it'll be a notch above them, but like, I don't know. I think there's too much depth right now in the Eastern Conference. Like, I was going through all the teams today, and I'm like, Charlotte, like, they could be like the 13th or 12th team this year.
They took a step back. They haven't done anything to add to this team. Like, how is that possible?
They have added. They just added different pieces.
Added by subtraction. Are you talking about for the draft? Or is that
I'm saying through the draft? I mean, they got Naz Reid. Like, Naz Reid's probably a better player at this point than Miles Bridges. Yeah, they definitely lost some LaMelo Ball, but it's like they got Christian Anderson. They got Hannes Steinbeck. They also traded away, or they got Grayson Allen back in a deal who shot the ball incredibly well. And then they got Royce O'Neal, who's also a good role player. So it's like, it's not like they lost that much, and they're opening up more opportunities now for Brandon Miller, Konka Nipple, that kind of thing. I think they're in a better spot than they were.
I think they're better in a spot long term. I definitely think so.
They've taken a step back in overall talent just because LaMelo's ceiling is higher than any other players they got back in the trade. But they're not done. I mean, it's still pretty early, I guess. Like the Pacers haven't even made the Kelly Oubre Jr. signing official
Which is
yet.
interesting.
So
Which is okay. So we just got the details just now. Oh, okay. So again, Dallas is sending Middleton to the Wizards via sign and trade as part of the larger 6-team deal that includes in total the Mavs, the Wizards, the Clippers, the Pistons, the Bucks, and the Grizzlies. This
yeah.
involves John Collins, Gary Harris, and Torian Prince, Isaiah Stewart, Santi Aldama, Karis LeVert. So okay, so they made it part of a bigger deal. So you could just see that there's still a lot of moving parts going on. Obviously, another trade that I kind of mentioned, but what happened earlier today, Karis LeVert being traded from the Pistons for Gary Harris and Torian Prince. So creates a trade player exception for Detroit. So interesting stuff to see. I think they're still trying to clear room. So now Detroit has traded Karis LeVert and Beef Stew this offseason, really waiting to see what they do next. Obviously, Jalen Duren really holding things up for them, but they're clearly plotting something.
They definitely are. Just keep your eyes on Trey Murphy III is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
He does seem like the next big fish to get moved. Doesn't seem like LeBron will be going to any of those teams that were involved in that trade. Looks like recent reporting said Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Miami are the top three right now, with others lingering is what Sham said or something along those lines. So I don't know what's going to happen with LeBron, but he could drag this out for quite a while. So I think an interesting note of free agency moves, or I guess we could say transactions in the offseason, was the waiving of DeMar DeRozan from the Sacramento Kings, and only $10 million is guaranteed on that deal. They can waive and stretch him up to 3 years for about $3.3 million, and that is what it appears they're going to do, but they still have about a month or so to determine if they want to do that. DeMar DeRozan becomes a very coveted free agent. He's a 17-year veteran, but the last time he, averaged less than 18 points a game was back in like 2011, like that crazy. It's when 2012. Like he's been averaging 18 points or more basically since his third year in the league. So for 14 years straight, he's just been unbelievable. So I just wanted to throw it out at you because we talked about DeMar DeRozan as like a wild card for the Pacers. They can make this happen if they wanted to. I don't think they're going to be the front runners to get him, but I would like his fit here potentially next to a Kelly Oubre just to give this bench a little bit more scoring.
I would love it. To me, I feel like that's your Mathurin replacement. I really feel like that is your surefire scorer off the bench.
Then what is Oubre?
Well, Oubre, I don't. Oubre is not. You can't. If you're talking about scoring, they're not on the same level. Like Oubre, good player. DeMar DeRozan quietly climbing up the all-time scoring ranks. I want to say I looked at. I think he's like in the top 25. So you're talking about a guy who like that's what he does. Where Oubre, very good defender. He can give you 14 points per game, things like that. DeRozan, not a good 3-point shooter, but I feel like he can still get buckets even at an older age. So I think that he would definitely make the Pacers better. It's a little bit complicated, though. I don't see the Pacers really taking that type of swing unless they were to find a home for, a player like a Jarace Walker to be able to clear off about $8.4 to $9 million or so.
Yeah, so I will just say this, like I really appreciate Josh Lovell, who's a longtime listener of the show and a fan of the work. I've been reporting, not reporting, that's a bad way to say it, but I've been writing about what kind of cap space the Pacers could open. And right now they're $1.6 million away from that first apron after the Oubre, projected salary. If you waive Micah Potter's number of 2.8, his non-guaranteed, that gets him around $4.4 million of cap space to go out there and sign DeMar DeRozan. Now, I originally wrote this article and looked at the wrong year. I looked at 2027, not 2026, for what the 10-plus veteran minimum is, and it is 3.9 basically. I had it at like 4.07. Not that much of a difference, still works, but regardless, I went back and changed it. But Josh Lovell was saying that he can sign for $2.45 million. Any NBA player can do that, and I don't think that is what.
No, it's like it counts for I don't understand how it works, but that's how it worked for Andre Drummond. They're saying he signed for 3.9, but it's counting for like 2.4 million against the cap. Not entirely sure how that works, but that's what I've read.
Okay, so then again, when I heard that, I'm like, I'm trying to understand what that means because if you look at the new CBA and how the contracts are set up, or the veteran minimums are set up, like we've talked about, Braden Smith could sign for, I think it's $1.4 million because he has zero experience on a veteran minimum. That's kind of how they use it, is like years of experience. So there might be something where like only X amount of percentage of a minimum contract counts against the cap. That I don't know. I do know that it's kind of weird. But regardless, they don't have the space to make that deal happen. So if it is only the 2.45 that Josh is suggesting here that would count against the Pacers, then they could also waive Quentin Jackson and make that deal work. So I don't.
Some more cap space. They still a little bit of a roster issue player wise, but
still down a guy, but you still have it. But you would have the space to do that. So I don't know all the rules of it. I mean, it's very complicated when you're like talking about only X amount of money counts against the salary when it's a minimum contract for X players. Okay,
it feels made up. You know, it feels like
very
free money.
I feel like I want to say convoluted, but that doesn't sound like the right word. It's just complicated to me. So overall, regardless, I feel like you have to have the amount of space to like take that money in regardless. I don't know. And maybe it's because the Knicks are hard capped at the second apron that it's different. That might be something else to play with. But either way, I mean, I did hear Bobby Marks talking about this on a podcast when they were talking about the Jaylen Brown trade and things like that. And they mentioned something along it, only counts for X amount of dollars for the minimum. So maybe there is something there. But it's not like you can just say, hey, we're signing him for 2.45 because the player is still going to get the full $3.9 million. So however that works, I'll look into it a little bit more and try to write about it just to make it more sense, make more sense. But at the end of the day, the Pacers can make very minor moves around the edges to bring in DeMar DeRozan. That is semi-exciting, semi-interesting, Foch. But once again, I just kind of feel like it's a pipe dream. I don't really see.
I don't think it's realistic. I don't. No. I want it to happen, but like we're talking about, like you got to cut this guy to bring in this guy just to save just enough. Then we're still down a roster spot, and we know how the Pacers operate. They have not been like this aggressive type of team. And we did mention a little bit. We haven't seen how the Kelly Oubre contract is going to be structured in specific. We know the total dollar amount. We don't know what year one is versus year two. Maybe that is an option that creates a little bit of cap flexibility in this first year. It's a possibility, but I just feel like DeRozan is going to have suitors, and winning should be incredibly important to him. Now, the Pacers, he would definitely make the Pacers an even better team, but I also do think there's going to be, like, if he's willing to take a minimum contract, he should be able to have quite a few teams lining up for him. I would think so. And maybe some of those teams are offering starting spots, where DeRozan at this point, as good as he is, I still feel like the Pacers love what they have to the point where I don't think they're offering a starting spot. If they were to bring on DeRozan, do you think he's taking a starting spot over Nesmith at this point?
There's no chance.
I know. That's where I'm at. So it's like, you got to take a bench role. It's going to be on a minimum contract. You want to come to Indiana? It's like, you know what? I'm DeMar DeRozan. I'm probably going to pick the starter level job somewhere for maybe a little bit more money as well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, where does he go? Because there was some speculation like Toronto could make sense, especially with Kyle Lowry hinting he might go back. And then we hear the next day that Lowry signs a 1-day contract to retire after, which I think is really cool. I like that kind of stuff.
I do like that. I do.
Yeah. 20-year vet. Like, it's still wild to think he was drafted in 2006.
Yeah.
But we're slowly starting to lose these old guys. I mean, LeBron's still hanging on, but like the Chris Paul draft, like I was like, man, we got guys like that are still hanging around with these drafts. Like Mike Conley's one of the older guys now. So
2007 draft, four of the top 5 picks from 2007 still kicking. Crazy.
Impressive.
You got Durant, you got Conley, Jeff Green, and Al Horford. Like
Jeff Green, I forgot he's in the league still.
Pretty wild. You know me, I had a soft spot for a long time. I wanted him on the Pacers, just never worked out.
How many guys do you have a soft spot for?
Dude,
I feel like there's a million.
There's a list. If I was to create like the all Facci soft spot team, like I can't say it would be a great roster, but there would be some names on there for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I think one thing that we can kind of like lead into with this is if you do bring on DeMar DeRozan, you already have Kelly Oubre Jr. Look, you mentioned that at the beginning. It doesn't make sense to keep Jarace and or Ben Shepherd on the roster if you were going to acquire another player that would be ahead of them in the rotation. So you would probably want to look to find some more center help if you don't love the Jay Huff, Micah Potter combination. But here's what I'll say. A lot of people have commented or even mentioned stuff on Twitter to me like, you're really negative about Jarace. You're really negative about this team, and I wish you were more positive. So here's my positive spin, Fudge. We saw a video today of Jarace Walker throwing down a nasty
it was awesome.
left-handed
I want to see more. I want to see more of that.
And I don't know who the poor white guy was, but clearly not an NBA level player. But just to see Jarace kind of attacking the rim like that, it just put it into perspective. Like, okay, so I'm a massive St. Louis Cardinals fan. Everybody knows that listens to this podcast. And there's been players on that roster that are currently having an all-star level season. Jordan Walker is the name I'm talking about. He's 24 years old.
Yep.
And he's like got 21 home runs, I think, so far this season. Just got named to the All-Star team. He's going to be a starter for the, I think he's a starter. Maybe he's not a starter, but he's on the All-Star team. And, in Major League Baseball, every player or every team gets an All-Star representative, which is cool. But it's just like people were writing him off like this guy just is so inconsistent. He can't figure it out.
That.
And it was like I would watch him play and like he'd watch his arm in right field and be like, man, this dude is a talent. And then you get up to the plate and go through like a 2-month slump where he barely could hit anything and they have to pull him from the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of how I view Jarace Walker. I think that, and it's funny, their last name is Walker. Both their last names is Walker. But I think with Jarace, right, like this is a player that we see the potential of what he can be. And because he has not lived up to that, granted, it's only been 3 years, I think that the reason we're a little bit more negative is because our expectations were significantly higher for the 8th overall pick in the NBA draft. This was a guy that was supposed to come in, be incredibly defensive-minded, he wasn't a three-point shooter at all, was supposed to be this great, like, hybrid four that can get the ball and go and push it up the court and pass and do all this stuff. 7'2" wingspan. Like, we were talking ourselves into, like, the defensive prowess of Jarace Walker in Houston. And so, like, I will say because our expectations were high and we expected something else than what we're getting, I think it's kind of caused it to sour a little bit. But I also believe that we're probably both in agreement here. We think that there is still some untapped potential in Jarace Walker.
Definitely. No doubt.
That could help this Pacers team. And I'm not saying I want to get rid of Jarace Walker just to get rid of him, but I do understand the financial side of things, and that is kind of how I'm viewing things when I talk about it. It's not like, oh, Jarace Walker's terrible. Now, I've been negative about the centers because I don't think they're very good, but I will say with Jarace, like, this is a guy that belongs in a 10-man rotation.
Yeah, definitely.
Right now, with how the Pacers are currently constructed, he's on that 9th or 10th spot in the rotation. So I just wanted to clarify, like, I'm not trying to be negative as, like, I don't believe in Jarace Walker. I just don't know, like, the long-term outlook with him for this Pacers team from a financial perspective, and I think that the expectations for what I want to see from him, he hasn't really met those yet, and that's what's so frustrating because we see flashes of it, but it's never consistent.
The talent is in there. It is, but, like, what you mentioned of being the 9th-ish guy when due for a payday, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign, and I think that so many times people look at this from just, like, the player standpoint, and, like, our fan base loves this team, no doubt about it, but sometimes they fall too in love with certain players, and you don't wanna see anybody go. And at the end of the day, the one thing that we all kinda have in common is that we love this team, the team, and sometimes in order to, like, get better, sometimes it's change needs to happen, and, like, for Jarace, last year, he averaged just under 26 minutes per game. The ball was in his hand often. He started 41 games. It's half a season. He did not look great in those. He's not going to have the same opportunity. Like, if Jarace averaged 26 minutes per game last year, what is he going to average this year? You think he's going to be much better in a lesser opportunity role, lesser role? Like, I find that hard to believe. And I just feel like the Pacers have already been bit before where you let someone walk in free agency for nothing. Miles Turner, obviously we know how that situation played out in terms of, they didn't plan on it. But for Jarace right now, I don't know necessarily what his market is. Sure, you don't want to just trade real low, but like given the financial spot that they're in, I think in our guts, and a lot of people don't want to admit it, that it doesn't seem confident the Pacers are going to pay this guy. It does not. It does not. And that's how it was. I brought this up already a few times that, like, you and I got a lot of hate last year for trading Mathurin because it wasn't about that Mathurin wasn't talented. It was that financially, when you look at this team, everybody can't get paid. Everybody cannot. And one thing that came out recently that some people have been talking about is, like, a couple of years ago, they expected the cap to rise about 10% or so, like, each year. That's not happening. It's not. And it's actually creating a really big issue right now in the league where, like, teams thought they would have more cap space. And you're seeing teams really punt on good players and not even take anything really back in return. Like, players just trading for, like, traded player exceptions, and they're creating that, and they're kind of kicking the can down the road. The Pacers right now have a bunch of players that are under contract. They're in love with their top 7. You can't be, like, in love with your top 9 or top 10. It doesn't work that way. Like, someone's got to be the odd man out. And where this team is, like, they're going to crunch that. Like, there's a scenario where they might have to cut someone just to be able to bring in, like, 2 very minimal, low ceiling type of players, and that's not, like, great for the team. That's a financial decision. If they're pinching pennies at this point, trying to, circumvent, not be, like, above the first apron type of team, that means that they have to make some sort of tough decision at some point. We've talked about the consolidation trade forever. It really hasn't happened for the last few years. At some point, some move has to happen just to financially make it work with this team.
Well, yeah, and I mean, they're already in the tax. They're more than likely going to have to pay
where
the tax.
Have not been in over 20 years, and we know this team. They will find a way out of it.
Right now, I don't know if they will.
It's not about right now. Before the trade deadline is over, they will. I'm confident they will find a way out.
I don't know if I agree all the way there with you because they're like $6.5 million over. So if they trade Jarace, they're 1.9 under, and they still have to find a player to get underneath that. Whatever, if that's what they want to do. Now they could trade him and Shepherd and take back quite a bit less. Potentially. I don't think they're going to do that, Facci. I think they're just going to be smart about it. But if you look at next year's books, like not the 26-27 season, but the following year, Aaron Nesmith goes from $11 million to $20 million. You've still got Kelly Oubre on the books, and now you can become a repeater tax team. So it's like, does that mean Obi Toppin's on the move? Like, they said a 2-year window. So are they willing to pay the tax for 2 years? Like, that's the questions you have to ask yourself, and that's why it feels so unlikely that they're going to be like, "Hey, Jarace, here's another 4-year deal for whatever."
Exactly. Let's give you more money to go ahead of, like, he's not going to take less than what he's making now. No one would expect that. So
think about it from this perspective, right? Like, there are all these traded player exceptions. Like, if you could trade Jarace Walker, which I know fans don't want to hear this, but if you could trade Jarace Walker into a traded player exception, create your own traded player exception, plus get picks back, and then think about it this way: the salary that Nesmith will jump up to, the difference in what he's making now to what he jumps up to is probably what Jarace Walker's base salary will be, right around $9 million. So it's tough. It really is. And it's just like the way the new CBA has become what it is, you're seeing a lot of teams trade off players. I mean, look at how the Celtics dismantled their roster just the last couple, after winning a title. They had to basically dismantle it. Like, you're looking at OKC probably still going to have to make some moves, like with Lou Dort and things like that, to get under certain, aprons, because it's just restricting them from making moves and making their roster better and compliance with what they want to do. So there's just a lot of hurdles that you have to climb because of the new CBA, and there's a lot of salary dumping going on, and it's just the nature of the business, and it's completely destroyed restricted free agency outside of a few different moves. We've already talked about that. So anything else you want to add on that conversation before we move into our last segment?
No, just basically like what you touched on. Aaron Nesmith is going to go from 11 million to 19.4.
Yeah.
Like, that's
the difference of Jarace's contract now.
It's a great point to make, because that just shows, like, the next tough decision. So, like, even for a guy like Ben Shepherd, like, you could bring him back, but probably not at that much more than what he's already making now. And if you do, then you still got to make another tough decision somewhere else. So it's just, like, really, really tough. At some point, one or two of these dominoes unfortunately have to fall, and, like, that's where, supporters of this team got to realize that, like, this team's not going to stay together forever. There's going to be, we've seen the dominoes little by little between, first it was Turner, then it was Mathurin, Next, it's going to be someone else, and it will be someone else. And it's like no team really gets to keep everybody together. Maybe if you win a championship, but if you don't, I mean, even the Knicks, Mitchell Robinson, they loved him. He was vital. You can't keep everybody. How'd it go?
Yeah, and this is what makes it even harder to think about keeping Siakam after his contract's up, because Halliburton's
Really
going to be
tough.
on his supermax. You're going to have to repay Nembhard. You're going to have to, you got Neesmith's contract. Do you want to keep Zubats around, who's a couple years younger than Siakam, as your center? Because
obviously he'll need more money. He's underpaid right now.
Yeah, and you don't have really any centers on your depth chart that you feel good enough to start, other than Zoo. It's definitely tough, and it's like that's why draft picks will become important at some point, just to be able to sign people. But Furphy, thankfully, he's under contract for a couple more years at a very cheap contract. But you're going to have to be very, very smart about everything. So it's just really interesting. I just find it fascinating, but I thought it'd be fun to just kind of look at the roster as currently constructed and maybe come up with some trades for a Jarace Walker or a Ben Shepherd that would make sense. And so you came up with one each. I know that you didn't have as much time to do a bunch of homework tonight because having two kids, it's very tough at bedtime. You never know what's going to happen. So
never know. Sometimes you read 3 stories. Sometimes it's just one. It's just a 3-story night. So
plus a glass of water.
Yeah. Plus, yeah. I got I'm thirsty. I'm like, you're not going to drink the milk. I want the milk. I'll get you water. I don't want the milk spoiling in bed. All the stuff that you deal with young kids.
Yeah. All right. So will you tell me at least, because you came up with one trade for each player, what teams did you come up with so I don't repeat them?
This would be the Washington Wizards is one team, and another team is the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay, perfect. I had 2 trades with those teams, so I'm curious what you kind of came up with those teams.
All right.
So go ahead.
So I'm going to start with this one, and I don't know. Who knows? Who knows if there would be interest on both sides, but we'll see. All right. Ben Shepherd, hard guy to trade. All right, not making a lot of money, maybe not having a lot of value around the league alone, but just to try and make some things work. Ben Shepherd and Micah Potter, as well as Utah's 2027 unprotected second-round pick and Dallas's 2028 unprotected second-round pick. It's going to Dallas for Derek Lively, who's expiring. Indiana saves about $600,000 in this deal, gives him a little bit of wiggle room to be able to, sign a player making, upwards of basically about $2.5 million or so. What are your thoughts on this? Given that now you get your backup center, you have a little bit extra wiggle room to sign another player, and then for Lively, you're taking a flyer on a guy who's going to then be hitting free agency.
Yeah, I actually have a Lively trade myself, and so that's why this is interesting to me. Mine was the Jarace Walker Micah Potter trade versus Ben Shepherd, and I had it for Derek Lively.
More appealing.
Yeah. I had Derek Lively the second and Ryan Nembhard coming back, which would save the Pacers $1.2 million. So anyway, and I'm just curious because I do like Derek Lively, but I am a little bit concerned about his health.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think the second round picks definitely make the Shepherd deal more appealing to Dallas.
Dude, it's 2 second-round picks. Dallas getting their own, which is 2028. Who knows what that team will be like then? Utah 2027. Who knows on that? Maybe it's maybe around 35 or so like that. A top 40 pick. So they're not great, but they help sweeten the deal a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's intriguing, right? Because Derek Lively was a former number 12.
He's a 10th overall pick. He was 10. Yeah.
He was traded, that's right, from the Mavericks. No, he was traded to the Mavericks from who was it?
I don't know. What it was, he wasn't. It was that they were going to owe their pick to the Knicks, and they ended up just tanking pretty badly. They kept their pick.
I just talked about this trade with somebody over the weekend. I thought he was 12th, and then he got traded to the Mavericks at 10. And then whoever
maybe that's what it was. Either way, I know he was picked 10th.
Yes, that's what it was. Cates Wallace was taken 10th, and then he got traded to the Thunder. So they did a Lively Wallace swap, and then Grady Dick went 13. That's what it was. So I just had this conversation on 4th of July. So that's why I was like, why is this in the back of my head? But regardless, Derek Lively is a very good player, his lottery pick, and he was really good Luka's first year. But then he got, he got hurt,
regressed, team stunk.
Yeah, and honestly, I think getting him with another point guard like Halliburton would be really fun, and maybe be the best thing for him. I don't really know what Masai Ujiri and Mike Schmitz think about him. I have no idea what they think about Shepherd or Walker. I think Walker definitely is more of an appealing player to go back home to Texas. Yes. But I think that Shepherd plus picks might be more appealing to what Dallas is trying to do. So either way, I do think that it makes some sense to get stronger at the center spot, at least a little bit younger at the center spot as well, and kind of replace the Isaiah Jackson,
Yeah, I
loss
know
that
what you're
we had
talking
with the
about.
Clippers trade.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think for that deal, if Indiana could pull that off, I then like their center rotation is Zubac, Derek Lively and Jay Huff. I think that's pretty good. I don't know who you'd sign next, but you'd have a little bit more financial wiggle room. The second round picks, I feel like you can part with. Those were some of the better second round picks that the Pacers owned. So felt like those could be, obviously teams love to get their own picks back. I know it's a 2028 second round pick, so I don't think Dallas is sweating it like some other teams that might owe their first round picks. But for Ben Shepherd, I think if you could pull off Derek Lively, it would be probably as good as it gets.
For sure. All right, well, let's see what you had here for the Wizards.
All right, so for this one, this gets a little bit complicated because even some of the sites that I was looking at wasn't even updated. But Jarace Walker going to the Wizards for DeAndre Ayton. So it's straight up. You cut Michael Potter. It enables you to create additional cap space. At that point, you're freeing up about $3 million in this instance. So that helps. That basically at that point, you're able to sign like a veteran minimum type player. And I think in this instance, Jarace Walker, I think, could have value to a team like the Washington Wizards, a guy who technically was drafted by the Wizards on draft night. Had to unfortunately wear the hat for a quick moment. But I do think that for Ayton, he's probably expendable given that he's on a 1-year deal, doesn't have ties there. But for the Pacers, you finally actually get to live maybe what could have happened, but you're doing it, with Ayton making significantly less money on a 1-year deal this time around than when they signed him to the largest restricted free agency offer sheet ever at the time, which was a pretty wild move. I remember we did a podcast and then the Suns matched it before that episode could really even be published. I definitely remember that.
It was out for 15 minutes.
Yes.
Because we as soon as we found it, we said we got to record right now. I remember we had Scott Agnes on the show before the signing happened because he had seen him in the Indianapolis airport, or there was pictures of him at the Indianapolis airport during Summer League because he flew in to meet with the front office and signed the deal. It was pretty crazy. It was a legit thing the Pacers wanted to do, and then the Suns were like, okay, no, we're gonna match this. And I think honestly it worked out for the Pacers better, and it kind of hurt the Suns.
It definitely did. It really did have that type of effect, and also Ayton was just so unhappy that the Suns matched, and you just saw that the Suns honestly unraveled because Monty Williams, I believe, was their head coach at the time, and he had such a bad relationship with Ayton that it was them
so
matching
sour.
that offer sheet was a terrible move by them, and it was a blessing in disguise for the Pacers.
It would have been so much better. I know it's hard to think about it because this is where when you get into oh, he was our first overall draft pick in the 2019 draft. We took him over Luka. We have to commit to him. They would have been so much better off doing a sign and trade for Miles Turner that they didn't want to do. But in hindsight, people say, well, the Pacers would have been way worse with Ayton. I'm listen, I think Halliburton would have made Ayton a lot better. And I do think that if Ayton hadn't played out the way they hoped he would, there's a good chance he's traded to Toronto in the Pascal Siakam trade. I firmly believe that. I don't know how they would have viewed it, but that's a lot of money. And if he wasn't performing well, I think they would have tried to get off of that. And I could see Toronto talking themselves into it, especially with the roster that they had at the time. So it seemed like they were kind of going through a little bit of a rebuild. So it makes sense to add a number 1 overall pick for Siakam in a trade, especially if he had had a higher value playing with Halliburton. But either way, I think Ayton's an interesting name. We talked about it a little bit last time on the pod. I don't dislike it. I wonder how much Indiana values him, or how much Rick Carlisle is this is somebody I would want to coach, because this does not seem like a Rick Carlisle guy to me.
I wouldn't blame him. I wouldn't blame him. Ayton, just you don't want to say low IQ, but it just seems like he's made very questionable. Feels like he's the type of guy that every time a comment comes out or a quote, it doesn't really paint him in the best light. And I know that Indiana's done a great job of really avoiding all of those type of players, but this to me is the definition of a flyer. If you're openly you have no plan to pay Jarace Walker, then you're in the same type of situation if you're not taking on any extra money with Ayton. If anything, like I said, short term saves you money, creates a little bit of financial wiggle room. And then for Ayton now, you're taking a flyer on a guy that you're hey, you know what? If everything works out and he does play well and does want to be here, and it seemed like at one point he did, there's a scenario he might even be able to re-sign for less. Like, I don't think Ayton's done anything to increase his value. That maybe, what if he's a, taxpayer mid-level type of guy at like 6.1 or whatever, who knows what it raises up to a little bit the following year, but he might be able to re-sign for even less money if it's a scenario that works out well.
All right, Facci. So I had a trade, like I said, with Washington that I thought was kind of interesting. I didn't throw any picks in here just because I'm like, we can talk about the second round picks. It might be like Pacers get a 2028 back since they traded a swap with the Bulls, whatever. But this deal, it was including Jarace Walker, but I didn't go for Ayton. I went for the other center that I think could get buried with Ayton's addition, and that's the younger one, Tristan Vucevic, at $3 million. Plus, they're going to take back Cam Whitmore as well as on a flyer and an expiring contract of 5.4. It's basically an even swap for swap and gets the Pacers to 15 players on the roster.
I like that aspect of it because, like, then right then and there, you're talking about, like, it's not so much about just signing Joe Schmo who can make it work financially. You're talking about taking like 2 flyers on players that I feel like, one, I like Vucevic coming out of the draft. I definitely remember second round pick. I was like, okay, you know what? Like, late this guy's got some game. $3 million for your center, like backup center, great. Cam Whitmore, you and I and plenty others wanted him on draft night, and it sounded like the Pacers did too.
They tried to
It
trade
sounded
him.
like, yes, they were trying to, and he was a hard guy to be able to trade for. Now, I do not think that he has lived up to expectations at all, but like you said, the key word is a flyer. So, you know what? If it doesn't work, like, you can get rid of him. You really can. But I would be very much intrigued by that due to the fact that it rounds out the roster, and both players have upside instead of bringing in one guy with upside and one guy that just fills a spot on the roster.
Yeah, and by getting to 15 players, now you can decide to move on from Micah Potter at his 2.8, which then opens up enough space to get you somebody for that vet minimum. We talked about Gary Trent Jr. if you really wanted to bring him in.
Which I do.
Yeah, I mean, now you could have him and then have Vucevic as your third string center behind Huff. You have Cam Whitmore, Johnny Verpy, Quentin Jackson, and whoever else, Ben Shepherd, as kind of your third string group. I think that's pretty impressive and pretty enticing.
Well-rounded group is what I would say. Like, you're not going to have like a 15th guy that just doesn't even belong at all. Like, I feel like if Vucevic can be your emergency center, I don't even think that if Cam Whitmore hits, that's awesome. If he doesn't, it's really not a big deal. But I'm intrigued by that deal.
Yeah, and you could get off Cam's money pretty easy at 5.4 being an expiring. I'm sure there's other players out there that can make sense. So, all right. Any other trades you have, or do you want me to just kind of run through some of the ones I had and give me your
Usually
thoughts?
I got an honorable mention, but it was just on a time crunch. So what do you got?
Okay, so the first one I came up with was one I thought you would actually come up with. I'm surprised you didn't. It is a straight swap. Jarace Walker to the Chicago Bulls for Jalen Smith.
I can promise you, I put it in the trade machine, and I was going through it, and I was like, but it was like, I want to say that it was like Jalen Smith. It was like $9.1 million. I was using Fanspo. That's what they had him at. So I was like, it's taking on a little bit more money, but like, I definitely thought about it.
It's $1 million difference.
Yeah.
It's basically 9.999. Like, it's $1 more for Jarace from what keeps it $1 million, but it's like $1 million basically. They're both expiring contracts, and it would keep the Pacers about $600,000 below the first apron. So they'd be in compliance at 14 players. I like that idea, just because I really like Jalen Smith, and then you could cut Micah Potter once again. And then you have Huff, Smith, and Zubats. Like, that's a pretty enticing.
I do. I like that
center depth chart to me. So that was one that I like first thought of. The next one I came up with was a Shepherd deal, and this is a 2-for-1 that actually makes perfect salary matchup, which I was surprised. Now, I don't know if this team would do it just because I don't know what their financial situation is. And I know they're very tight against the books. I don't know what moves they can make to make sure their roster is in compliance of 14 players. But we're looking at the Suns. It's a 2-for-1 deal. And we know the Suns kind of need some depth with their roster because they're pretty tight. But Ryan Dunn, who was a second-round pick that really hasn't panned out, but like a flyer defensively. And then my guy, Oso Ighodaro, for Ben Shepherd.
It's interesting because Ryan Dunn was someone that Pacer fans, I think you and I included, were very intrigued by in the draft. It was like that was someone that were like, defensively, what do you bring? Like, I definitely remember Rooster personally being like, how do we get Ryan Dunn? I definitely remember that. But yeah, he was someone that offensively was, a little bit suspect, but defensively looked like he could be really good. So it was Dunn and Iguodala for Ben Shepherd.
Yeah, you might
Yeah,
have to give a second round pick in that trade
yeah,
just to make
you
it work,
might.
but because Oso's kind of been a big part for them, but like he just can't play he can't be their starting center. They got Kamalak from Duke,
Who
I
they
think.
really did, that was questionable for them to make that like with the trade they're using to take him like 10th overall and like really not play him last
Yeah.
year. I
I
thought that was
think I
interesting.
said his name right. I don't know if I said it right.
I mean, if you said it wrong, I'm not gonna pronounce.
Malawach, I forget.
I think it's close enough.
Malawach, I think that's right. I
It,
might have said it wrong the first time, but like they have him on the books. They just signed Mark Williams, so it's like where
yeah,
does Oso Iguodala fit? Like he's probably like maybe their backup center, but like don't you want Malawach to be your next center? And
you should,
it's like
like
and like
there was a
if they're
time that the
if they're
Suns
ready to punt on him, then I would definitely do
they,
just Shepherd for Malawach.
they had no first round picks for like years, and they make that trade, trading Jalen Green and all that, and like they get the 10th overall pick, and you don't even really play him. I think that was kind of crazy, but maybe it says that he really wasn't ready. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for Ryan Dunn, it's hard to get like a big snapshot of like his stats and things like that. But it's not someone that I've paid a lot of attention to outside of the draft when he was coming into it. But I kind of like that trade because I feel like he probably brings some Ben Shepherd like tendencies and not as good of a 3-point shooter or anything like that. So I would say Shepherd probably has more offensive upside. But I don't hate that deal by any means. I think it's one that like rounds out the roster. You're not like walking away with maybe, like a high upside player, but you're walking away with like two rotational back end, roster players, I would say.
Okay, now I'm gonna get a little crazy here because I did Shepherd and Walker trades here just for
Oh, now
fun.
we're getting wild.
We got Walker and Shepherd going to the Magic because they need some 3-point shooting. Okay, and in return, the Pacers are taking back Goga Batadze, Tristan Da Silva, and Jamal Cain.
Wow, a Goga
Mhm.
return. Wow, and this time around,
I'm
he might
reuniting
actually
all the
be able.
former centers.
Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes, if you love them, let them go, and you hope they come back. But like this time around, I actually feel like I would kind of enjoy Goga as a backup center
Yeah,
on this team. I think he's accepted that the 3-point shot was just never going to be a thing, and he's kind of stopped shooting them. And I think the percentages show that he shouldn't. 2 years ago, he shot 10.7% from three. That's gotta be, like, the lowest I've seen out of anybody,
yeah.
10.7. But anyway, I would be intrigued by Goga, and then Tristan Da Silva, I know that that was someone who hasn't really panned out as much, as a first round pick. Um,
He was later first, but he's a good wing player.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Whew, this is tough because it's like, does this move make you better, or is it just more of like, you're making a move to kinda round out this roster and things like that?
well, here's the thing: it saves the Pacers $1.9 million.
Which that
So
helps. So that's what I'm saying of like,
and you
is
don't
this
need
one.
Potter anymore, so now you can go
Yeah.
get a better wing if you want, but still, like, having Goga with J Huff and Zubats is really an enticing center depth chart, and then at the power forward spot, you can play, Tristan Da Silva and Obi Toppin. You can play Da Silva at the 3, move Kelly Oubre to the 2. Now you're looking at a more defensive-minded team. You don't really need to go out there and make a drastic move unless you really wanna go out there and get another depth guard piece, but, like, I don't know. It seems interesting to me. I feel like the Magic probably say no to this deal more than the
Yeah,
Pacers.
for De Silva, I mean, he played about 25 minutes for them. I'm
Yeah,
looking at it right now, 10 points per game, shot about, 37.5% from 3, like a solid piece for them. Like, I do
yeah.
feel like, offensively, like, that's probably more than you're gonna get out of a Ben Shepherd, about 10 points per game. So, like, I think he does still have a higher upside. I think Goga has turned himself into a very capable backup center. Like, he's someone that could give you, I don't know, 6 boards a night, block some shots, not bad at all. I think I would rather have Goga than Micah Potter just because I know, look, we know Potter offensively is gonna be, a better player, but I think for Goga, I mean, I don't know, maybe I just still got that soft spot for Goga is I
Yeah.
wanted
I
to see
think
a little
Goga's
bit
a little
more.
goofy. I don't know if he would actually
He
fit this group the
he's
right like
definitely goofy. He for sure is. He
he
always has
he did
been.
not have a good go around here last time with the Pacers. Now,
Did not at all.
What I will say with this deal, like the reason I thought about trading Goga, one, he is a trade candidate that they talked about. They did shop him earlier this year. Then Mo Wagner left for Brooklyn. So you're thinking, oh, they might want to keep him. Well, they brought in Vucevic and they re-signed Jonathan Isaac. So I'm not saying that they, want to just get rid of Goga, but they already have Wendell Carter Jr., who's making a decent amount of money. And then with Isaac and Vucevic on the roster, like, they have to make some decisions because they're getting expensive. And I think that if they could get more floor spacing with Walker and Shepherd, that could be enticing. But once again, I think Indiana probably has to give up a second or maybe even two to get this deal pushed through if you're Orlando, because you're thinning your center depth and you're giving up on a first-round pick for 2 expiring contracts.
Yeah. I think this is one of those where I don't know how much it really moves the needle, but I do believe in Tristan Da Silva. I do think that there is still something there where he could continue to get better and like develop into like a solid rotational bench player. For Goga, how much money's left on that deal? Because didn't he re-sign?
It's an expiring deal for 7.6.
Okay. So yeah, I wouldn't see the Pacers re-signing Goga. This is tough. I feel like we could do the deal and I wouldn't hate it. If it didn't work out, I wouldn't be mad. That's where I'm at.
It's almost like one of those ones where you're making a 3-team deal where you send Goga to the Bulls, and then you send Jalen Smith back to the Pacers. Like, that could be interesting because the math would work perfectly for the Pacers in that scenario where they would maybe take back, like, I think they'd actually save like $100,000 in the deal, but like it could work if you wanted to just like ship Goga somewhere else because you just don't want him to be part of your team. But you do want to take a flyer on like a Da Silva and a Kane. I mean, it's just interesting to me. Once again, I don't know how much Orlando does it. The last one I have here, I couldn't avoid the New Orleans Pelicans Facci. I couldn't do it. I was like, I'm not going to do it. And then I was like, I'm going to just go back and see and get your thoughts on this, because this specific deal saves Indiana $3.5 million.
Okay? This is getting interesting.
So they're going to send out Jarace Walker, Ben Shepherd, and Micah Potter.
Wow.
And in return, they're getting Carlo Matkovic, who I'm a big fan of. I just tweeted about him.
Yep.
Jordan Hawkins, who's on an expiring deal and has not really panned out. Another flyer. And of course, Yves Missi. Now, if you want to,
I would have been shocked if he wasn't included in the deal at this point.
If you were to tell me the Pacers have to give up a first-round pick in 2027 for this deal to go through, I would do it if I'm Indiana, because I think Yves Missi is the best player of the 6. Just because I do believe in him as a talent. Now, because you're saving $3.5 million and you're already 1.6 away from the first apron, that gets you at $5.1 million away from the first apron. So you can sign any veteran that you want to the 2 spot to play in that spot for Jarace Walker and Ben Shepherd if they were both to be moved. So it's just a little interesting. It's very much like we're building up our depth this way. And I think Carlo Matkovic is a very intriguing player. Someone that I would love to see kind of develop and grow. And like, could you end up, I'm not saying I want to do this, but if you get rid of Pascal Siakam in 2 years, would you feel comfortable enough starting Obi Toppin and then having Carlo Matkovic play your backup power forward spot? Like, could he develop into that on a cheaper deal? And then
that I can't answer for you.
I'm just saying, like, thinking long term with how tight salaries are.
Mm-hmm. I like the fact we use Missi coming to the Pacers. Okay, definitely very solid. I like the fact that it frees up like $5 million, because then I do feel like you can get Gary Trent Jr. Now I do feel like you've upgraded. Like, you got a good backup center that you believe in. And I do feel like Gary Trent Jr., would be a solid addition off the bench. So I think this does probably round out this team a bit better. The 2027 first kind of has me shook. You trade that first, like you're like really kind of out of like, you're getting to a dangerous spot asset wise.
But not really, because you still have 28, you have 2030, you have 2031, 2032, 2033.
Yeah, but what could the Pacers look like in the 2030s? With that, we don't know. Like, we're talking about
picks. You're just trading 2027, which is next year's pick.
I know.
You don't think it's going to be good.
You wouldn't feel comfortable wanting to part with any of those picks and anything, because this team could look drastically different like 4 years from now, as it should.
Yeah, and that's why I wouldn't trade future picks that far down. Now, if you were to say it has to become a 27 and another second or 2 seconds, like, I'm not.
That's too much. That's too much at this point.
Yeah.
So I just feel like
I know how much the Pelicans have said they value Yves Missi on the open market, so I'm trying to like, okay, because like Shepard, Walker, and Potter, like those are all expiring contracts.
Yeah.
You know, while we believe that Walker could develop into more and he's only 22, like New Orleans should be willing to take a flyer on somebody like this.
they should. They're not going anywhere anytime fast. Like they should definitely take a flyer on Jarace Walker and see what happens.
I mean, he's better than Jordan Hawkins, who's been just a complete
Absolutely.
shell of himself. And I think Shepard's better than him. I honestly think Jordan Hawkins is arguably the worst player in this deal. I think you can make the case that Micah Potter, for what he's making salary-wise, is a better contract and player than Jordan Hawkins. And I think clearly Karlo Matkovic is better than Jordan Hawkins from how I value him. So that is just something I'm throwing out there. And like we did see Matkovic working out with Zubats, and Jenny Busek and some of the Pelican staffers. So I'm not saying that it's like, oh, this is why it would happen, but I do think that there could be some intrigue there from Indiana.
I think there could be. I think there could be some intrigue. I don't hate the deal. The first, I'm just a little bit scared because I just feel like if this move doesn't work out, I just feel like the Pacers then are in this slippery slope where it's like we lost our 5th overall pick. We're kind of panicking. Now we're going to trade another first. If that doesn't work out, like the treasure chest of assets is getting skinny. So I would hope to believe that we're hoping in the projection that these guys could continue to get better. So for Yves Missi right now, I feel like he's like the hot name out there, but like still has a lot to prove. So I'm a little bit guarded on our first round picks, but
2027 first is not enticing.
It shouldn't be bad at all because the Pacers should be good enough to the point where, you know what, if you trade the 15th to 20th pick, it's not that big of a deal or something.
But what if you said we'll do a 27 and a 28 swap instead? Kind of like what the Hornets did, where they got the Minnesota swaps.
Yeah, I would do that because we should, in theory, be better than the Pelicans. So
so you're not really losing. Yeah. Now it'll have to convey something at some point.
I would totally do the swaps. I would totally do it.
I think because you have to make it where it's like, oh, if
and
it doesn't like swap over these.
Like the Pelicans are dumb enough to do it too. I feel like they'd be like, absolutely, we'll do that. And then it's like, all right, great, nice. Like, I mean, those aren't going to materialize because we should be better than you. And then at some point they got to break up some players. So
like because it's like the Knicks were trying to get Yves Missi, they couldn't get him. I think the Lakers tried to get him, they couldn't get him. So it's like for the Pacers, like he's not even going to start for the Pelicans as far as we know. Like they're talking about starting Derek Queen, and I just don't understand like what their roster is. Like they're holding on to all these players, and they're like, "Oh, we're not going to give up Trey Murphy." It's like your team sucks. Like you're not going to go anywhere in the East or the West.
No idea what they are doing. It is shocking.
Yeah, so like that's why like I think young players like Walker and Shepard make sense. Even though Shepard to me is like not super young, Walker's only 22. He makes a lot of sense to move on. Like if they were to say we want Johnny Furphy in this deal instead of Micah Potter, would that make you hesitate to do the deal?
And we're still getting him a first?
That's debatable. We could talk about both scenarios, but like if they said we don't want Potter, we want Furphy instead, would you be willing to give up Walker, Shepard, and Furphy for Missi, Matkovic, and Hawkins?
I don't know. It's kind of a lot. It's kind of a lot.
It sounds like a lot on paper, but like if you're losing these players in free agency anyway,
I know.
The only one that the Furphy one, letting him go just feels like emotional more than it does.
I know. That's where I'm at. Is like I guarantee you that you could pull a bunch of other people around the league and they would say, "Who's Johnny Furphy?" like they would say that. Oh, you talking about the guy who dunked in summer league? Well, yeah, but he's more than that. Like it's like Johnny Furphy. We enjoy. He was good with his team. Like he was a fantastic plus minus type of player with this group last year. He wasn't like flashy, but did a lot of things well. And I definitely hope that he recovers well and hopefully I don't know what the timeline could be. Hopefully by the start of 2027, like turn January, hopefully he's out there and hopefully he sounds like he's making a good recovery and, doing well at that. But I don't think that the Pacers should like have him off the table by any means. But it starts to that definitely be like, we're trading a bunch of our depth here, so it gets a little dicey.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I know fans will probably like just like absolutely like shred this trade idea.
They absolutely would. They're very Johnny Furphy. Fans have become very protective of Furphy.
I think even without Furphy, they're gonna hate this trade idea because they're like, Yves Missi sucks. Pelicans suck.
It's definitely not the most like, oh yeah, like to me, it's like people have become like obsessed with Yves Missi, and I feel like he could be good. He definitely could be good, but like I just feel like there's definitely been he's kind of been that person that Pacer fans have like sunk their teeth into to be like, I need
What
him. I need him. And
what
it's
is
like
it about this Pelicans roster that has so many Pacer fans just excited? Like Trey Murphy
I,
third, Herb Jones. Like we've been
I
talking about these
know.
guys for 5 years.
Exactly. Everyone's like, I want that team. It's like, you know, the team stunk, right? Like they were awful. Like they have Zion also. They still stink. But they do have players that just need a change of scenery.
Yeah.
And some of those guys will go on to be good. Just like kind of like there's been like the Timberwolves have had, players leave their team and be really good elsewhere. Just like whatever it is. Like there's been those players that just need a change of scenery. They go on like Cat winning a championship, and Jimmy Butler needed to get off the Timberwolves, and he's had good seasons with like, the Heat and a couple other guys. So the Pelicans, I just feel like it's not a place where you thrive, and those players probably will do better in other scenarios. But yeah, I would say those are. You don't have any more trades, right?
No, that's all. I mean, we went through quite a bit.
We did.
I came up with extras just in case, and you were like, I'm struggling to get these trades in because
Yeah.
I've had a long night. I was like, all right, I'm going to come up with some more just to talk about it because we were each going to do 2 each. So I kind of came up with like 3 each. So we all had a total of 4. But it's just interesting because it's like if you talk about like what's the next move for the Pacers if they make a move, like these are kind of ideas that could be thrown out there. Like I don't know if they're all perfect. But I think that they do make some sense with some of the teams we talked about, some of the players we targeted. Not saying they have to do it. And I want to make sure people realize that, like, we're not saying they have to do these deals. They don't have to trade Jarace. They don't have to trade Shepard, but they could. And that is all I'm throwing out there is just like, don't be so close-minded to the idea that they could do it just because of all the financial things we laid out on the table earlier. And if you get someone like Yves Missi as a backup center on a rookie contract for like the next year or 2 while you're in this 2-year window, like that makes more sense for the Pacers timeline while you're paying all these guys like Siakam and Zoo and Halliburton on his Supermax, and Nembhard's contract will be coming up soon, and you got Nesmith's new extension. Like you're going to need these kind of contracts, and then you can reevaluate in 2 years and see, do we keep McConnell? Do we get rid of McConnell? Do we bring Obi Toppin back? What do we do with Siakam? Like I think all these things in the future, they matter just because of how the CBA is currently structured and where every team is at and where the Pacers are at. Like they're going to get more expensive. Nembhard's going to cost more money. Toppin's going to cost more money. Nesmith's already going to cost more money. Zoo's going to cost more money. All those raises basically say, where does Siakam fit? So it's really tough. It's really hard to be in this new era of the CBA in the first and second aprons, and we haven't had to see the Pacers do it yet, Facci, but there are going to be some very, very tough decisions moving forward.
That there is. That's why they pay Chad at the front office the big bucks, and I think along the way there'll be some heartbreak, but it's all about pushing the team forward. And I think that there's going to be some guys that we love that we can still root for from afar, but that's the business that is sports, and we've seen a lot of teams make business decisions. Like I doubt that the Bucks ever wanted to trade Giannis, but they had to. You got faced with a situation where you had to, and there's plenty of other teams along the ways that had to make those same tough decisions.
Absolutely, Facci. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode here, about an hour long. So we appreciate you guys letting us do a lengthier one today. I'll be back tomorrow with an episode. Going to have a guest on, and then we're going to talk some Braden Smith. We're going to dive into Braden Smith, and we're also going to talk a little Summer League tomorrow on a solo show, and that's probably going to do it for us this week here on the Setting the Pace side of things in terms of the Pacers side, and we will have one Fever show for you with Casey Johnson and myself on Friday, so be on the lookout for that, kind of recapping the road trip, what's going on with Justine Passat not getting her contract matched, and the Aces being able to snatch her away from the Fever. And then, of course, they do play the Mercury, who they just had a very intense back-to-back game with where, Caitlin Clark has been out for, almost 2 weeks since that incident that took place. So a lot to talk about there on the Fever Show. But anyway, Facci, if you have anything else you'd like to add before we sign off, please go ahead.
I do not. I think we covered just about everything that we could possibly cover in this episode. This was definitely a lengthy one, so I hope you guys enjoyed.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up. We hope you all have a good one. And Facci, if you're hoping the Pacers continue just to dominate in this summer with their international play, their summer league play, and stay healthy, hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go Pacers.